So I think, it's nice to have sort of a 7-point plan, some sort of a index around the horn. So let me start in the upper right-hand corner and just kind of give you a brief paragraph about what we mean about these things and why we think they're important, perhaps in general, but also specifically related to where we're headed with the B2B gateway. And again, focusing on B2B integration, we believe that it's the lifeblood of so many businesses, that it floats to the bottom in the pace layering model, and people forget to look at it. And forget to innovate. And so we're trying to sort of challenge that. Think about it, be cautious, but think about it. So let me start with the upper right-hand corner. We talk about supporting all data types. And I think this means a couple of things. First of all, a file or a message, the duality between the different frameworks that we use for maybe file or message or even API routing, we've tended to build up technology silos around that. And so I would challenge you to think about, no, it's really about the information, about the data flow. And just because new data formats come out or new styles of integration come out, don't necessarily think that means you need to silo or add completely separate blades to your infrastructure. Challenge your infrastructure to get a broader set of tools so you have commonality, at least around the governance of managing those B2B flows. The other point related to data types gets back to something I was saying earlier about the data explosion, where part of it is we want to stop throwing information away. In particular, we want to stop throwing metadata away. And so I think we're going to find that we're looking now not only at the data flow, but the metadata flow that's associated with it, because that's going to be some of the information that we want to keep and perhaps will drive analytics. So for example, you get maybe a web browser transaction that comes up. If it's coming from mobile phone, it probably has geo coordinates on it. What are you going to do with that? Today, we may throw that information away. Maybe it has identification of which browser device it's coming from. Maybe we can use those analytics to say, in the future, we should be doing some kind of mobile device because that's where people are coming in from. So think very broadly about all the information that you're handling. So next, let's move one step to the left to the high-speed data transfer. The other thing that we see happening are really two different dimensions that make high speed a problem. One is increased globalization, where we're moving information around the planet, and maybe we're being forced to segregate the way we handle data because of data jurisdiction requirements and safe harbor and whatnot. But the other thing that's happening is networks themselves are naturally getting faster. So what used to be, I remember the days when a T1 was considered a high speed line, and now a T1, it's only 1.5 megabit. I mean, that's ridiculous, right? I would change my own home internet to something to go faster than that. Now we've got, a gig internet, 10 gig internet, 40 gig internet. And so as the speeds get higher, it also starts to expose cracks in the underlying protocols that support the internet, and you can't actually get all that speed out, even if you're only going across the street. So those two different dimensions require some kind of a response, some kind of new technology to be able to really saturate the wires, either long distance globalization or super high speed, even short distance. And so that may be the topic of another webinar, but we have some technology we've called JetSonic that you can blend in to try to take advantage of those two trends. So keep that in mind. I'll keep going counterclockwise. Scalability. I think it's not really just a matter of being able to take an infrastructure and grow it to respond to the increasing demands of the data growth explosion, but also to build in sort of an elasticity to the way we do it. Netflix is famous for scaling up through Amazon. They're kind of a founding customer partner of Amazon's on the weekend when people want to watch movies, and then scale that infrastructure back during the week. Now, not all of us have a business model that exhibits that kind of transient demand, but we all have end of month, end of quarter, end of day processing. So can we create an architecture for scalability that gives us that kind of elasticity? And I think a lot of us may have found that in general we've overbuilt the infrastructure and it's underutilized until we get to the hairy edge of end of month processing, and then we're perhaps even a little bit undersized. So it's not just scalability; it's thinking about elasticity and a way of managing that in a new way, so that all of us look a little bit more like the way a cloud might be built, even though we're not really a cloud. And that relates maybe to the next one, the clustering and fault tolerance. I think the architectures that support this kind of elasticity also support what people are starting to call reactivity. In fact, there's a reactive manifesto floating around the web. But reactivity captures the idea of sort of self-healing infrastructures. Software or like a B2B gateway that isn't necessarily fully sentient, but has some kind of a self-awareness about its own status, and pieces can restart and can reload, and we can handle lots of parallelism. And so that clustering, and we're really talking about the horizontal scalability and elasticity, but the fault tolerance piece is really about the pieces backing each other up and being able to dynamically recover, design for failure in a way that I think requires a little bit of a rethink about how the infrastructure is managed. On the bottom center, we talk a little bit about collaboration and self-service, and this is another point that I think is also really important in the B2B gateway world. We tend to think of B2B gateway, it's that plumbing way down in the basement of the building that's mostly automated, right? The whole drive of certainly B2B and EDI automation was to get away from manual processing and get stuff automated so we can take cycle times out, take cost out, and in general, that's been really successful over the past decade or two. But I would challenge you to always think about, find the human. Somebody's looking after that. And so who are the people who do the onboarding and provisioning? Who are the people who do the maintenance? Who are the people who do the monitoring? Who's in charge of collecting statistics to do continuous improvement? And I think in a lot of ways, we've been maybe guilty as B2B gateway vendors, as an industry, that we focused on, automation and maybe their logs, maybe their reports. But we haven't really, I think, solved the whole problem all the way up to the human who cares. I think you should challenge us, and we believe this is part of the puzzle, that the gateway can do what it does from an automated perspective, but it has to go, deliver that analysis and make recommendations about how it can make itself better, so that your human beings are focused, again, not on doing the manual work, but on doing the meta work of making the infrastructure work better. And that ties in then to the next piece, which is the integrated analytics. Now, we do a lot of work with big data. We talk about a big data gateway, which is really kind of an application of the core data movement and integration strategy, but not necessarily to an ERP or a warehouse management system or claims processing environment, but to a big data repository, which requires a different kind of scale and a different type of technical agility to do. So we're feeding big data, but what about collecting big data on the data flows itself? What kind of analytics can a B2B gateway do so that it can make itself better? It can help you with the collaboration and self-service piece by providing analysis on the data flows themselves. And I think we see this, time and time again in various industries where a firm will discover that what has value is not their core business, but is the data about their core business. This is why maybe YouTube gives away video content hosting for free, because there's so much value in knowing who's watching what, and then being able to monetize the metadata instead of monetizing the core platform. So that may be a little bit extreme from a B2B gateway perspective, but I'll tell you, we've already started doing this just from a security perspective. That I think the new world, and I kind of transition to the center of the diagram, that in the new world, security is really going to be based on modeling and analytics, not on very static responses. So yes, we'll still have firewalls. Yes, we're still going to have passwords and keys and all the traditional sort of static defenses. But I think we need to layer on top of that some kind of analysis and dynamism, so we can see what's happening, we can see what looks weird, and we can begin to block what looks weird. And we've actually started doing this in our Cleo Harmony product, where we can set some thresholds and look for strange behavior and begin to tighten the platform and block bad acting IP addresses based on some integrated analytics. I think that's the beginning of a much broader trend around the security piece. piece in addition to other areas of analytics. But security, as Paul said, is going to become an increasingly important challenge. We're really talking about data movement, and most of the attacks that we see are really going after the data, right? That's the stuff that has value. And if you're not doing a big data project, maybe your attacker will. They'll steal your data, do a big data project on it, and find different ways of attacking you or your customer base. So we need to think about security kind of as a core piece that underlies all of the innovation that we do. So that's kind of our 7-point plan. These are the new ways of thinking about what B2B gateways, maybe what all IT infrastructure, but specifically what B2B gateways do, and just kind of raise awareness. This is an opportunity for innovation and differentiation around what might just be the sort of forgotten core lifeblood of the business.